This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israelis preparing for war but hoping for peace.
I'm not afraid yet, but I'm not happy about it.
I'm afraid I don't want to be the war.
Plus, Scott Ross talks with Nigerian pastor Umar Malindi after his brutal attack at the hands of radical Muslims. And take a look at Jerusalem from the air. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. We're coming to you from Jaffa. This is the place in the Bible where it says Peter had a vision of a sheet coming down from heaven. From there he went to the house of the Roman centurion Cornelius and preached the gospel. Behind me is Tel Aviv. Israel this week had a 3-day nationwide drill preparing for the possibility of a chemical attack. The main concern is the ongoing Syrian civil war. Israelis headed for bomb shelters as part of a nationwide drill to practice what to do in case of war.
When it's a real time, then they know exactly what to do and they won't be frightened or terrified.
Dubbed Turning Point 7, the 3-day drill simulated rocket and missile attacks on Israeli cities. That includes chemical and other non-conventional strikes. The drill is annual, but the government held this one with tensions high on the Israeli-Syrian border. Israel is also concerned that Hezbollah or other jihadi terror groups could acquire Syrian chemical weapons.
This is one of the worst scenarios that Israel could think about.
More than 80,000 people have been killed so far in Syria's 2-year civil war. But Israeli intelligence expert Jacques Niria told CBN News that neither those loyal to Syrian President Bashar Assad nor those opposing him are winning.
So we have a stalemate on the ground, which means that this civil war could last for several years.
To complicate matters, Syrian opposition forces have been overrun by thousands of jihadis who want to re-establish the caliphate.
So they want an Islamic state 100%. The first thing they did in Homs, when they took one of the quarters of Homs, was to ask all the Christians who are living there just to leave town.
Niria says there are two possible outcomes. Assad survives and his allies Hezbollah and Iran are strengthened, or he falls and the jihadis take over.
One alternative is a nightmare. The second one is a worse nightmare.
The U.S. and Europe say they are now working to bolster the rebel forces, but some say that would be a mistake.
When you take a dictatorship out, you create a political vacuum. Who's using this political vacuum is the Muslim extremist. And that's the scenario that we saw happening in Egypt and Yemen and Tunis and so on and so forth. The same scenario will take place in Syria. And this will be a much bigger mistake.
Israeli officials say they'll stay out of the conflict unless they need to defend their citizens. And Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu warned that Israel will continue its efforts to stop Syria from transferring weapons to Hezbollah. Despite all the talk of war, many Israelis say they're not concerned.
Israel is a really strong country and we can beat everyone.
I'm afraid I don't want to be the war.
I'm not afraid yet, but I'm not happy about it. Really not happy about it because we understand that it's very dangerous.
Still, while most Israelis are hoping for the calm to continue, they know they must prepare for war. Here's CBN's Julie Stahl with more reaction from Israelis about the possibility of war and the Syrian threat.
After the Daykeeper War, I don't worry from nothing. I was in the war. Yeah. I don't worry from nothing. Not bombs, nothing.
So you weren't afraid to come to Israel?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because what you hear in the news about what's going on in the borders has nothing to do with what's going on inside the city. In the city, everything is so calm and safe.
Are you afraid of the situation here in Israel?
No, because Israel is a really strong country and we can beat everyone.
We survived for the last 60s and more years. We will. We are stubborn Jewish show.
Do you think God has anything to do with
that?
No?
I'm not afraid because my country, it's big country, it's strong country.
Do you think God is watching over Israel at all?
All the time.
Yeah?
The God all the time.
So you think God is helping Israel to be safe?
You know in the Bible what the God tell?
Yeah. So he's watching out for Israel?
Yes, all the time.
Julia, this nationwide drill, was it planned specifically to address the threat of Syria, or is this something that Israel does on a regular basis?
No, Chris, they do this on a regular basis. Israel, every year they do a nationwide drill. It's sometimes it's different focus. You know, they had the sirens. That's quite an eerie experience, but every year they have some form of a national drill.
I heard the sirens yesterday twice. It is kind of an eerie feeling, and where I was, people were just sort of not changing their behavior at all. They're just walking down the street. But how would you say the general mood is Israelis right now?
Well, you know, Chris, I've said this before. Israelis are amazing people. They keep going with life. Right now, you know, it's almost the end of the school year, and they're focusing on summer vacations and things that they're going to do. But they're looking over their shoulder also. I mean, there is that threat of war. There is the threat of what's going on in Syria and other places.
How about the mixed signals sometimes? I mean, one day you might hear an Israeli general saying, you know, the possibility of war is very imminent. Others would say the next day perhaps the Syrian threat is not as great as people think. How do you, sift through all these different conflicting statements sometimes?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think the bottom line is the threat is there. And it probably depends on what point they're trying to get across for that particular day. I know right now people are more or less saying no, that there's not going to be a war right now because Assad wouldn't risk losing his place because he's already fighting the rebels. But the threat's there, and I think they want people to understand that that is a real threat, and something could happen. It is, you know, the Middle East, and anything could always happen.
And one time, I think in Syria as well, I mean, it's so volatile, unpredictable, mainly in large part because of the rebel forces, which are now mainly jihadi forces, so that it adds another element of unpredictability. One thing about the threat, just a few months ago, we were hearing sirens here in Tel Aviv. What's the greater threat, from Hamas in the south or maybe Syria in the north?
No, definitely Syria. From Hamas, you know, they're smaller rockets, much more like hand-launched rockets. From Syria, they're missiles, and they have much longer range. They're much more powerful. I mean, they can come all the way here to Tel Aviv. But like you said, they did have sirens here for the first time in decades in November when Israel had the little mini war with the Gaza Strip.
Right.
So they've had that experience recently, so it's definitely in their minds.
Right, and like we were listening to the sirens yesterday, I had the thought that this may be a drill, but certainly it could be something we're going to hear in the near future. Julie, thanks. Up next, Scott Ross talks with Nigerian pastor Umar Malindi and how radical Islam poses a danger to the West.
Today we're on a field trip to discover what inflation is doing to our paper money. In this hand is a $20 bill, and in this hand is a $20 U.S. gold coin. They used to have the same buying power, but how much can they buy today? In this first basket is what my $20 bill buys: milk, bread, peanut butter, and jelly. And here's what one $20 gold coin will buy: 6 baskets full, worth nearly $2,000, almost 100 times more food, simply by owning gold dollars instead of paper dollars. History shows that the gold coins have been the best way to beat the rising cost of living. So class, the moral is that unless you want to live on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the future, you should turn some paper dollars into gold coins now. How and why is explained in a new book, The Great Debasement. Call the number below for a totally free copy. And that's the simple truth.
Help! If an emergency happened right now, you can have help at the push of a button with Medical Alert.
Remember when I took that fall, Mary?
Oh, yes, that was terrible.
Yes, it was.
Help!
And I thought, what if you hadn't been there? I ordered my Medical Alert the next day.
I can't describe how safe I feel now with my Medical Alert. You didn't know I was wearing it, did you?
Medical Alert is easy to install, waterproof, and covers you inside your home and out.
It helps me feel safe from fires, break-ins.
And of course a Medical Alert. And if you don't have a home phone, don't worry. They have that covered.
There's always help at the push of a button. Don't wait till you need it.
Get Medical Alert for less than $1 a day. There are no long-term contracts. Order now and get your second button free. Call for your free brochure.
For your free Medical Alert system with second button free, call 800-575-8507.
Recently, the world was outraged over a savage attack on the streets of London when a lone British soldier was brutally murdered by radical Muslims. CBN's Scott Ross sat down with Pastor Umar Malindi, who also suffered an attack in the name of Islam and survived.
On Christmas Eve 2011, Pastor Umar Malindi was attacked by two Muslims with buckets of acid. The acid ate away his skin, his eye, and his ear. He now wears a special pressure mask to aid the healing process.
My conversion from Islam and my love and promotion of the love of Israel in my community touched the people on the other side to haunt me and to hunt me for a kill.
Malindi was raised as a Muslim and hated Israel. He knew if he deserted Islam, he could be killed. But he had a dream that changed his life.
Was it a vision you had or a dream?
It's a dream, sleeping. I was in the midst of fire crying, but I saw that many of the people who were with me in this fire were the fellow Muslims we go with in the mosque. But as I was crying at the climax of the scene, somebody shining stood on the right side and told me that Islam is leading you to this torture. Repent, be born again, you shall survive.
Instead of believing in Jesus, Malindi prayed Muslim prayers against bad dreams, but it didn't work.
And after that I went back to my place and the dream came again. The following day I took myself to the church and I gave my life to Jesus.
Malindi became a successful evangelist, winning other Muslims to the Lord. He later founded Gospel Life Church in Kampala, Uganda, where 30% of more than their 1,000 members are ex-Muslims. He also came to love Israel and brought others to visit the Holy Land.
Your former friends and your brothers in Islam must have hated you.
They hated me. That's the reason. So on the 24th of December 2011, as I was coming out of my church, somebody pretended as a believer. He said, "Pastor, can you help me?" He wanted my attention, my full face. Yet he had a bucket of acid in his right hand. As I was turning like this, the Spirit of God in me told me, he's a wrong person. So I turned my face to enter my car quickly to drive away. As I was approaching my car, he poured a bucket of acid on my head. Oh. So I felt like I'm being thrown into hell. I felt fire from up to down to my toes. And I was like, something is cooking me. And they shouted, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, 3 times. I realized that I have fallen into the ambush of Muslim terrorists.
Malindi was rushed from one hospital to another, first in Uganda, then in India, and finally Israel.
It was a deep, very deep and very severe burn to the face, ear, and eye.
I spoke with Dr. Joseph Hike, head of the burn center at Sheba Medical Center, Tel Aviv Hospital.
Because it was 2 weeks old, we had to wait and see that our cleansing was good enough or sufficient. And then in the second stage, we ordered skin substitutes. We reconstructed the face, obviously in association with his own skin grafts.
This is the man from Uganda,
Mm-hmm.
and here we are in Israel. So why would you take him in here?
There's no difference, and we do not discriminate between age, race, origin, religion, or whatever. This hospital has a big tradition for many years now to help around the world.
What is the prognosis now from here on out?
Most of the grafting helped and succeeded in 100%, but unfortunately we'll need further surgeries.
Malindi told me that people need to understand that it takes the power of God to spread the gospel and comes with persecution.
So you're not angry with God?
I'm not angry with God. It has encouraged me to serve the Lord more, to expose the lies. You see, people say Islam is a peaceful religion. But if you say that Islam is peaceful, look at me.
Yes.
I am the true picture of what Islam is all about.
But they say there are radical elements and there are good elements, peaceful elements in Islam as well.
But that's not practical because these radical people, they read what they read from the Quran. And whenever a Muslim does not like something, everywhere in the world people know, they will demonstrate on the street. If not killing ambassadors, they will burn the houses and everything.
Melendez says Islam wants to rule the world, and terrorists take their inspiration from verses in the Quran.
This verse says, فَقَتِلْهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةً وَيَكُونَ دِينَ اللَّهِ.
Which means?
Kill, fight, and kill those non-Muslims until when there is no any other except the religion of Allah.
How do we, as Christians, in my case an American Christian from Scotland, how do we fight that? How do we defend ourselves against that?
Islam is eating the West because the Western world has compromised and sweet-talking about what is happening and thinking that keeping quiet will solve the situation. But you have to remember, hiding your head in the sand cannot chase your enemy who is chasing you to kill you.
How do I love my enemy? If in this case you said you love your enemy, they did this to you.
The best way to love your enemy, in this case, to love the Muslims, is to preach the gospel of Christ to them. If we take the gospel to them, at whatever cost, we are loving them.
Coming up, we talk with world-leading Islamic scholar Professor Moshe Sharon about the basic beliefs of Islam.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
As Pastor Mulindi warned, radical Islam poses a danger to the West and to the world. We sat down with Professor Moshe Sharon from Hebrew University, one of the world's leading experts on Islam, to understand more about the tenets of this faith. Well, Professor Sharon, thank you for joining us here on Jerusalem Dateline. You know, a lot of people need to understand, I think, some of the basic tenets of Islam. What are the pillars of Islam?
Well, there are 5 pillars of Islam. The first one is the profession of faith. Second one is prayer, which means every Muslim is going to pray 5 times a day. The other one is to give alms. It's called zakat. Every Muslim is going to give alms. And of course, it is in the Islamic literature, it tells sometimes how much each Muslim has got to give. And every Muslim has got to go on pilgrimage, the Hajj, Hajj to Mecca, and every Muslim has got to fast in Ramadan during the whole month of Ramadan. These are the basic 5 principles of Islam, to which one can add another principle which is not part of the 5, but it's very important in Islam, is this a principle of the holy war. The holy war against the infidels in order to create from Islam a world religion, and not only a world religion but also a world government. Because religion and government in Islam is one and the same. It's not like in Christianity when you've got the church is one thing and the ruling and the government is another thing. There is no Caesar and God. There is no such a thing in Islam.
And what is this difference, this terms between the house of peace and the house of war?
The house of peace is very simple. The house of peace is the territory in which Islam rules. That's the house of peace. The house of war is the territory in which Islam should be ruling, and in the future it will rule. Islam would rule that area, and it would be part of the Islamic Empire. So there are 2 parts. The world is divided not only geographically, but it's also divided religiously. And religiously it's divided into these 2 parts: the house of Islam, the house of peace, which is the house of Islam, the house of war, which is the house of the non-Muslims. So if you come from America, then you are harbi, you come from the house of war. And basically anybody who lives in the house of war is not a Muslim, is an infidel, and he is an enemy, just by the mere fact that he comes from the house of war.
And what is the difference between Islam and the Muslims who may or may not subscribe to all of the tenets of Islam?
First of all, in any society, in any religion, you would find people that are believers and non-believers. I mean, non-believers in being part of the society, but not infidels, but non-believers in the religion from which they come. But in the Islamic world, there are 2 things which every Christian should understand. First of all, as far as the Muslims are concerned, the majority of the Muslims are believers, and most of them would keep the rules of Islam and the different things which they have to do as Muslims. That's one thing. Secondly, the belief in the Quran. Yes, we read the Bible as Christians, as Jews, but there is no such attachment that every individual feels to the Bible as one feels to a Christian, with all the attachment that we feel to the Bible. The attachment of the Muslims to the Quran is unbelievable, and it for them it is a way of life. It's the real words of God, and anything that is in the Quran or interpreted by the real interpreters or the good interpreters of the Quran is regarded as something that comes from God Himself, particularly the text of the Quran. And this is something which one ought to understand. The holiness of the Quran is like a holiness of a guidebook that guides you in every step that you do if you are a Muslim and a real Muslim. Now, yes, we know that in the Christian world and the Jewish world, we regard the Bible as the Word of God. But it's very hard to explain it, that there is a tremendous difference between the attitude of Christian or Jew to the Bible and the Muslim to the Quran. Because sometimes a Muslim, a Christian or a Jew would say, okay, the Quran is holy to the Muslim. But the Muslim would say, no, the Bible might be holy to the Jews and Christians, but they're making mistakes. They were not such good custodians of the Bible. That's why the Quran came to correct all the mistakes of the Jews and the Christians in the Bible.
Well, thank you, Professor Sharon. Appreciate your insight and understanding.
Pleasure.
When we return, we take a bird's eye view at Jerusalem from above.
When you're driving along and your cell phone rings, do your eyes instantly go off the road?
then you need to get a grip. Hi, David Jones here with the new GripGo, the most versatile hands-free mount that will instantly grip any phone for safe driving. Just attach the suction cup to your windshield or dash, and GripGo grabs your phone ultra fast. Then it peels right off. And don't worry, there's no sticky residue left behind. The 360-degree pivoting mount allows you to always get the perfect viewing angle. It's even strong enough to grab and hold this expensive smartphone out the window. Yet it comes right off with ease. That's the advantage of GripGo. You can get the amazing GripGo with dashboard mount for only $14.95. We'll send you a second kit free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Get 2 complete GripGo systems for just $14.95.
To order GripGo for $14.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-709-5259 or order online at getgripgo.com.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison and shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
As you can see, Israel is a beautiful place. Recently, we took a helicopter tour over different parts of the country. We end this edition with aerial views of the holy city, Jerusalem. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.